On the ground, when we were in Kyiv, what we kept hearing from Ukrainian military officials, from President Zelensky himself, but importantly also from U.S. officials at the U.S. Embassy, is how incredibly vital this aid is to Ukraine's ability to defend itself, to defeat Putin, to regain more of its territory, to protect its citizens, and ultimately to defeat Russian aggression and Vladimir Putin's army.
Well, reality seems to be biting pretty hard here, Congresswoman. I appreciate the message that you're delivering today, but your speaker says this is DOA, that this funding will not even get a vote in the House of Representatives. And the calendar looks pretty challenging right now. Even if this money does get passed, it's going to take a long time. Do we need to be honest with ourselves or honest with Ukraine about what's happening in your House of Representatives?
The reality is that one person, the Speaker of the House, has the ability to bring this bill for a vote. If he were to bring the bill for a vote today, it would pass with an overwhelming majority. This bill would deliver vital support to our Ukrainian allies. It would deliver vital support to our Israeli allies. This bill would deliver vital humanitarian aid to stabilize a region that is currently destabilized. And this bill would support our partners and our allies in Taiwan, because make no mistake, right now, China is watching, Iran is watching, and Vladimir Putin is watching. As the world is questioning, will the United States continue to be a global leader for democracy in support of freedom and American values? Will the United States actually take steps and work in its own, our own best national security interests and pass this bill? And that decision comes down to one man. Is he going to choose the national security priorities of the United States, bring this bill forward? I don't even care if the Speaker votes for it himself. He just needs to bring the bill. Because the reality is, failure to bring this bill is an abdication of our responsibility. It is an absolute capitulation to Vladimir Putin, and it endangers our country. So there's no other option but for us to bring it.
But Congresswoman, theoretically, there is another legislative option that could go around the Speaker, a discharge petition. Are you effectively telling us today that you don't think that stands a real chance of working?
I think all options are on the table, but I think it's tragically sad that we are trying to come up with procedural avenues around the most simple and straightforward manner. We're the House of Representatives. We're supposed to take votes up or down. This bill represents a major priority for our security. And so, yes, I am happy to look at all of the other contingencies we could put in place if we are dealing with the reality that the Speaker of the House doesn't want to protect our country and our national security interests. But the fact that we're actually having to plan for these sorts of contingencies is, in my mind, tragic. I'll continue working with my colleagues to make those plans because we need this bill to pass. But the bottom line is it could pass today if only the Speaker would bring it.
Well, you wonder what's going on here. Some have suggested there's a bit of gaslighting going on at the hand of Donald Trump. That as long as the Speaker's on the phone with Mar-a-Lago, this is never going to happen, Congresswoman.
You know what? That's one step even further. The idea that a former president and now candidate for president would want to stand in the way of the United States Congress protecting our own national security interests. The United States Congress, House of Representatives, passing a bill that passed with the support of 70 senators, Democrats and Republicans. It is absolutely just ridiculous that Donald Trump would be on the phone with the Speaker and encouraging him to do anything other than bringing a bill forward that protects our interests, that protects our values, and that ensures our national security interests are prioritized.
And you mentioned that you think Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, is watching this very closely. I do have a question pertaining to Russia for you, Congresswoman. Given your seat on the Intel Committee, the chair of that committee, Mike Turner, put out a statement today saying he was asking the president to declassify all information related to a serious national security threat. Congresswoman, we've seen reporting that this is about Russia. Can you confirm that?
I respect you for asking that question, but as a former intelligence officer and current member of the Intelligence Committee, I'm going to just defer to the statement that the chairman has made and not provide any additional comment on that.
Well, Congresswoman, could you at least tell us if this should concern us? Should we be eminently worried about a threat here wherever it's coming from?
I think we should always be concerned of the threats that are targeting the United States. There will always be foes the world round. We know them economically and militarily: China, Iran, North Korea, Russia. And that is why we must pass this national security supplemental. And particularly at a time when we do see a statement coming out from the chairman of the Intelligence Committee noting that there are specific threats at this time that there have been specific briefings about. There's no time like the present for us to actually focus on our national security and push this bill forward.
I realize you don't want to talk about this, Congresswoman, as a former CIA officer. I wonder if you think this is irresponsible for the chairman to put something out like that without telling people what the heck it means.
So it's not an issue of want, it's an issue of what I legally can do, and I can't disclose any information related to what I've been briefed on. And I am aware that all statements, there's been significant discussion within the intelligence community about what can be made public or not. And so I'll defer to the chairman regarding what he put out, but legally and with my responsibility to protect classified information, will not comment beyond what it is that he put out in his very brief statement.
All right, Congresswoman. Well, certainly we respect that. We appreciate you answering what you can. On a different related matter, Joe was mentioning the legislative calendar, how it may not favor passage of emergency aid. And in part, that's because we're just a few legislative days away from potentially a partial government shutdown. The deadline is March 1st. You're going to be out of session for a few weeks between now and then. Can it be averted? If so, how?
This is another question where, when Speaker Johnson stepped forward and said he wanted to be Speaker, that puts him and his leadership team in charge of the calendar. Certainly, I think it's totally appropriate if Speaker Johnson wants to say, you know what, not only do we have this supplemental, this national security supplemental to do, but we also must fund the government. We also need to do FISA 702 reauthorization. We also need to focus on FAA reauthorization. Let's cancel that district time. Everybody come back to Washington, stay in Washington until we get this done. I would be wholly supportive of a Republican leadership choosing to do that, because you're right, there's limited time and there is much to do. And particularly when we do see, floor time being spent impeaching Secretary Mayorkas rather than actually putting forth the government funding that will ensure Border Patrol has the dollars they need to actually enforce the current laws, broken or in need of improvement though they may be. The idea that we're spending time on that and not funding vital agencies like Border Patrol, our military, et cetera, is I think it speaks to the sorts of priorities that are currently being put forward. But the limited calendar, that is of the majority's doing, and it is fixable if they want to keep us here, and I would be wholly supportive of that.
We'll let you get back to your day in just a moment here. We only have a minute left, Congresswoman. If Mike Johnson passes a CR to keep the government open, will he be fired?
I can't imagine the reality that, I can't predict what my Republican colleagues would do. I would say the fact that we live in a world where a speaker is routinely choosing not to govern because that might lead to his ouster by his right-wing flank, that is everything that is wrong with the United States Congress. I wish that he would say, I'm a Speaker of the House. My job is to ensure that governance is occurring. Therefore, I will bring bills for a vote. Vote for them, vote against them. That's the prerogative of each individual member. But to actually keep us from governing because he might lose his job, it's a sad reality, and one I wish that he would push through and not be fearful of.